Today I'm going to be telling the story of Eleweiz and her Halloween. So, they were discussing which houses on the map to choose to go to for Halloween. And then, so here's a picture of the map. They said, this house doesn't have very good candy. So they went to the next one. That one does. They marked it on their map. That one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, down to that one. Then they're like, ooh, that's a big house. It looks like it would give some pretty good candy. And then everyone else is like, no, don't mark that one on the map. That's Mr. Moon's house. And they were like, so what's wrong with Mr. Moon? And they're like, he's grumpy. He never puts up any holiday decorations for any holiday. He never gives out candy. And he's in a bad mood and his house is a wreck all the time. So they didn't put that one on the map. Eleweiz came home and showed her mom the map. Her mom said, well, let's go say hi to Mr. Moon because I see he's not on your map and I wonder why. Eleweiz told her mom the story and said that Mr. Moon was old and grumpy and never gave out candy and never decorated and was never nice to kids. And she said, well, let's give him a chance. How do we know? Maybe he's changed. So they went over to Mr. Moon's house. And when they got there, they went knock, knock, knock on the door. He answered, hello? And then they said, well, the mom said, hello, Mr. Moon. Are you having a good day? I wonder why my daughter said that you would never put up decorations or celebrated. He's like, yeah, and shut the door in their face. The next day, I think it's 2 days, maybe 3 days. Yeah, I think it's 3 or 4 days before Halloween. Eleweiz is making the decorations and talking to her mom. And her mom says, hey, we have a ton of extra decorations. We should go over to Mr. Moon's house and see if he wants some. After all, maybe he didn't put up his decorations because he just didn't have any. So they went over to Mr. Moon's house and they went knock, knock, knock. And he said, yes, who is it? And he's like, ugh, you again. And then they're like, hello, Mr. Moon. We thought since you never put up decorations, maybe you just didn't have any. So they gave him all of these decorations, including the other ones in that box. That's a whole box of decorations. And so they gave him the decorations, and then he said, and went inside and shut the door in their face again, but a little later this time. The next day, the mom said, I have a ton of extra, I think it was cupcakes. And then here's her imagination bubble and the box of cupcakes. At the end, I'll just say the whole story. Right now, I'm kind of explaining it with the pictures, but at the end, I'll say the whole thing in a row, if you guys just want to skip to that part. So maybe we could bring them over to Mr. Moon. I mean, I'm sure he likes cupcakes, right? I mean, doesn't almost anyone? And then Eleweiz is like, Well, maybe, but maybe he's allergic to them. That's why the rest of the people who don't like them normally don't like them, is because they can't have them. And she's like, oh, well, we can just see. So they went over to Mr. Moon's house. This is her imagination, but it didn't go so smoothly, or at least not as smoothly. They knocked once, and before they could get the other two knocks in, the door swung open. And Mr. Moon said, well, hello there. Have anything new for me this time? And they're like, yes, we brought a whole box of extra cupcakes for you. And he's like, ooh, thank you. Took them and shut the door, but very gently this time. So not in a rude way. After that, Eloise's mom said, how about you hand out cards to all the neighbors giving them a special invite. So Eloise went from house to house, giving her friends and neighbors some cards and whispering what they said in their ears. From all of the friends to even more friends went to every house except for Mr. Moon's. Then, the night before Halloween, or maybe this was Halloween night, I haven't been keeping much track, people started showing up at Mr. Moon's house. Some brought ladders, some brought giant cans of paint. Even the firemen showed up using their ladders. If you didn't know that, Eleweiz has a fire station in her neighborhood. And people got up on their ladders and started painting the house. People were fixing the windows and putting on new roof tiles. What Eleweiz had whispered to all those neighbors and friends of hers was, be at Mr. Moon's house tomorrow night. #secret. After a few minutes, Mr. Moon came outside and said, what's all this racket about? And then Eloise's mom explained that Eleweiz had given cards to all the neighbors that said to come to the house to help fix it. And after it was done, it was looking much nicer. New roof tiles, new fixed windows. People had washed down with the fire hose, maybe. I'm not sure if they used a fire hose or just got their own water or something. And then they had waited a few minutes for it to dry or soak off and stuff. Something like that. Maybe it was longer than that. And they had painted it and fixed the door, all that stuff. And Mr. Moon was so happy that from that day on, he always put up all of his Christmas and Easter and Halloween and all those decorations every year, and gave out extra candy at Halloween time. That's the end of the story. I hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said, I do a quicker summary of just reading it. So, here we go. So, Eloise and her friends were planning out which houses to go to on Halloween. They went through the whole list until they got to Mr. Moon's house, and our friend was about to cross that as a yes until all the other friends screamed out, no, don't. They were like, why not? They said, that's Mr. Moon's house. He's old and mean and grumpy, and he never gives out candy, and he never puts up his decorations. So that night, when Eleweiz went home, her mom said, ooh, nice map. But why isn't Mr. Moon's house on here? And she's like, because he's mean and old and grumpy and never gives out candy and never puts up his decorations. And the mom was like, oh, well, I don't know. I mean, really, we should give it a try. Come on. this afternoon at 7 o'clock, let's go over there and say hello. So that night at 7 o'clock, they went out there and knocked on the door. No response. They knocked again, and Mr. Moon opened the door with his grumpy face and said, "What do you want?" And she was like, "Well, we're just your neighbors if you didn't know. We live right over there. We were wondering if you wanted to." And he slammed the door in the face. And then, the very next day, Eloise's mom said, "Well, I think we have enough decorations. Maybe we should go give some of the extras to Mr. Moon." So they went back over there. They knocked on the door. It swung open, and he said, "What do you want?" Again, still in a very rude tone. And they said, "Well, Mr. Moon, we were just wondering if you'd like to have some of our extra Halloween decorations. We thought since you never put some up, maybe you just didn't have any." So they gave him all the decorations, and then he shut the door again. The very next day, Eloise's mom said, "Hey, Eleweiz, would you like to help me deliver some of these cupcakes? I have extras, and I don't think we can eat all of these. Let's go over to Mr. Moon's house again." And she was like, "Really, Mom? We've gone there yesterday and the day before, and he's been really rude each time." And she's like, "Yeah, but I feel like he's getting nicer every day. Let's go." So they went over there, and when they knocked on the door, it immediately swung open. Mr. Moon was really happy and a lot more cheerful. It was like, "Oh, hello, Eleweiz and Eloise's mom." He didn't call her Eloise's mom. I'm not sure what her real name was. Anyways. "Oh, hello, Eloiz and Eloise's mom. Do you have anything new for me today?" And she was like, "Well, yes, Mr. Moon, we do." And gave him this giant box of yummy cupcakes. He's like, "Oh, well, thank you." He put them inside and closed the door, but very much nicer closed this time. He didn't swing it or shut it really loud or hard. And then the very next day, one day before Halloween, Eloise's mom said, "Hey, Eleweiz, why don't you pass out these cards and read them to all the people in this neighborhood?" So she went around door to door, knocking on all her friends' houses, giving out the cards and whispering in their ears what the cards said. The very next day on Halloween, at 12 o'clock lunchtime, like 12 o'clock p.m., a huge crowd was standing around Mr. Moon's house. Some brought ladders, some had giant buckets of paint. Even the fire truck came, and the fire truck made lots of noise as it was driving down the driveway. They started hammering and painting and swapping out the roof tiles and stuff. In a matter of minutes, Mr. Moon came out and said, "Hey, what's all this racket going on?" And I said, "Oh, hi, Mr. Moon. We were just helping make your house look nicer." And he was like, "Oh, well, in that case." And he stood outside and watched. And by the time it was 4 o'clock, they were all done, and the house was looking much nicer. He said, "Thank you so much, Eleweiz and Eloise's mom. I can't thank you enough." And they were like, "Well, no problem, Mr. Moon." And every day from there on out, he'd always give out tons of candy on Halloween and always decorate his house with tons of Halloween decorations, especially the ones that Eleweiz and her mom had given him. That's it for now, guys. Please like and subscribe for more. I'll try and be uploading these almost every day if I can. Bye!